Hello crafty friends. So this month I decided I wanted to focus on kind of some mixed media, pushing some of you out of your shell for doing mixed media. So I sent you a stencil I created with some page protectors and cuts on the Cricut. So I lined up here in the inks Sundance, Peach, Nectarine, Paprika, and then Pine is at the end. And I'm just doing the rock and roll technique, and how I do that is, again, starting from the lightest color to the darkest color. You ink up your stamp from left to right so that you're not kind of cross-contaminating things. So you can kind of see that I'm inking up and just doing different parts of it, and I drug in the pine, that's that fourth color, and then there's mocha on the end, so I had those colors wrong. And then you can kind of drag it through there and you get different techniques. So I'm showing you here that I went ahead and did the rest of that with two different stamps from the thin cut and stamp set Simple Leaves. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start adding that mixed media element. I did already use the stencil once. You can kind of see the small, I'll call them noise dots, that are on the random stamp piece of paper, and I also took the small outline leaves from the September stamp of the month. So that's what all of those are, and I just did kind of random stamping. So now I took some textured paste, and again with the Sundance, Nectarine, and the bottom one is Pine ink. I just did a little swipe on my multi-purpose mat here, and I'm mixing those colors into the textured paste. And what I'm going to do is my stencil, I went ahead and sprayed one side of it with a repositionable spray adhesive, and the Scotch makes one, Crafter's Companion makes one. I strongly recommend them if you're going to start using some stencils, especially ones that are smaller, because it really helps hold things down. And then I'm just taking this palette knife, and just like you would frost a cake, I'm going ahead and putting the textured paste through both the large, I'll call it maple leaf stenciled image, and then one of the elm shaped leaves. And I'm trying to mix the colors so that there's a variety of the yellows and the greens and the oranges. And I thought about doing these more vivid, but because the background stamps were so vivid, I wanted to have some more variant in color. So it's almost like a second generation because I'm using the same ink colors. It's just diffused with the white texture paste. And I need a little bit more texture paste, so I'm going to go ahead and put some on the mat. I decided to grab that paprika because I think we need a little bit more of the orange, and it really softens up with the white of the texture. So that's what I'm doing here to just finish out. And I don't know, I can see it because I watched what happened, but they are getting kind of lost on the screen with the background rocked and rolled stamps. But in real life, this really does stand out and look great. And I realized I just needed a little more textured paste, so I'm scraping that off of the stencil itself. And I did add those orange pieces of tape to extend the edge of the stencil, just so I was less likely to get it off the edge. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the outline of the vein of the leaf, and with this gold shimmer, it's like a glitter gel, and it has stars in it and all, I'm going to add the veining to some of the leaves of the random stamp, not on the textured cardstock, but on the random stamp pieces. And I don't know if you can really see it, but it just jumps off. It's just beautiful. It adds that extra shine. I like using the gold tones for fall. For me, I normally like silver tones. That's just what I'm drawn to. But for me, fall needs those gold tones to them. And as you saw, you can just quickly wipe up this gel. If you get a spot where you don't want it on your paper, you can wipe it up pretty quickly. This goes fast. I know I sped the time that I was doing it, but it didn't take long at all. And I had so many camera issues. I ended up recording hours of just my empty desk when I went to the grocery store. So it was just a day yesterday when I started creating this project. But I had so much fun with it, and I hope you guys do too, and I hope that you do play with this. And if you don't have any of the mixed media mediums, you don't have texture paste or you don't have glitter gel, If you have any of the pearls, go ahead and squirt some pearls down and spread those through the stencil. Or here I have some gesso. If you have any kind of paint, again, you can tint it the same way that I did the texture paste. Or here I have mica powders, and I thought that would be fun. These didn't turn out as well as I would have hoped. They are shiny, but not the sheen that I was hoping for, like when we did our tissue inking with the mica powders. So I need to play with that a little bit more, and I will. It's more of a subtle hint on this acorn. So, and that's what I'm going to do is I'm practicing it here on just a piece of plain paper. I'm trying to see if I like the acorn and if I like the colors and if it has any sheen, and I end up making way too many acorns and using up all the gesso that I had gotten out, so I couldn't actually make that many on the actual product. But again, this was a new experiment for me, and so doing it again, I think I would either tint the gesso with re-inker or the ink pad, or not even use this medium because it's a little thin. I would want something a little thicker. And going back to, if you don't have any of this stuff, you can go ahead with your inks and blender brushes, or just a credit card that you have, or a room key for a hotel, and spread stuff through the stencils that way. You do not have to have all of the fun little toys, but if you have any of the pearls, if you have any of the old stickles, that's what they were called. If you have any of the old stickles, you can go ahead and do that. And one of the things that I learned is, so if I went ahead and did the gesso and tinted it with re-inker, and then before, like, let it dry a little, but not fully, and then I went back in with a Q-tip, you'll see a little bit of it, I think, later, with the mica powder on top of the just damp gesso paste, and that worked really well. That gave it the pearlist shine that I was looking for. So that's what I recommend. And here I used the yellow and the green of the mica powders for the top of the acorn, and the bottom is kind of the gray brown. I counted and I had done 7 acorns, so I wanted to make sure that I have 7 tops on my 7 bottoms. And you can see here where I got some onto that bottom part of the acorn. Well, it was still wet, so I was able to just take the tip of my spatula here and just blend it all together. And it's kind of funny, it's one of my favorite acorns because it looks more real, it has more movement and texture to it. It's one of those embellishment opportunities that turned out better than the original intention of the project. So we're gonna about finish up here, and this is wet. You can see that even though I have spray adhesive on the back of my stencil, it's still pulling up from the paper, and partly that's because I didn't want to push it all the way down and have to struggle with that. And here's where I said, after, take the mica powder and put it over the gessoed area. I went to the Make It From Your Heart Volume 4 in the very first pattern. I kind of found inspiration there. So I'm going to use this as the background, and then the other papers from the Crisp Air collection as the banners that are on the bottom of that. I do add some shimmer trim to this project, and most of you should have something in your collection, either a piece of cardstock or some other twine that you can add to your project if you like that look. So here I'm just kind of auditioning things. I realized that I want to cut some banner ends on this, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I don't show you that because I end up cutting them for all 3 cards, but I'm only going to assemble one on camera today. And I use both the front and the back of those pattern papers, so hopefully you can find inspiration from that. And depending upon what colors you use for your random stamping and your mixed media part, really might determine what you want to use for your project. So I'm doing a top fold narrow card as my base, and once I put this background on, I realized it needed something more, so I will end up inking the edges with sapphire. I think for the other 2 cards, I might just go ahead and get some cardstock and back the whole thing, or at least make a frame, but that's up to you as far as what you want to do. So here I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges of the background, and I'll do that with the banners as well. My goal for this month, and I think I said it, is to just kind of get us out of our comfort zone and push a little bit, or something that you've seen other people do. Just try it, just have fun with it. And you know, there are no mistakes. It's paper. It's not, you know, a super expensive investment, and especially the white paper that you're just playing with your stencils. Just have fun with it. So here I inked up the whole block. I didn't have a stamp on it in that Sundance, and then this sentiment, autumn shows us how beautiful it is to let go of things, or something along those lines, in the sapphire. And then I'm doing rock and roll with these little leaves, and these are also from the September stamp of the month, and as you saw, I did my envelope as well. This sentiment, simply enjoy these moments, is also from the September stamp of the month, and I just thought this was just a cute, fun little burst of color as those in Michigan especially, I know, head into kind of color starvation, and that everything will go brown and then be white, and then it'll be white, and then you'll have more white. So this will be a burst of color right before you go into the browns. So here's our project. I hope you have fun with it. Remember to just play. There are no mistakes. It's just for fun, and the more you do, the more you can do, and the more you'll have, as we know from our quote from our club. Be kind to each other. Have a great day. Blessings.